Let's go, offense, let's go.
Good morning and welcome to Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. Live pictures of a couple of tight ends making their way out onto the practice field in shells and shorts today after a full padded practice on a Monday. And Calais Campbell, happy birthday to the newest Raven, 34 years young. The energy, though, of what feels like a man in his 20s. Welcome again into Training Camp Live. I'm Evan Washburn, and we've got a new man here co-hosting the show, John Eisenberg, the closer. I'm going to call you here over the next few days as we close out Training Camp 2020. John, good to be back with you.
Great to be with you, Evan. I've closed out a lot of things.
As we know, an illustrious resume that maybe we'll get to over the course of our time together. But John, you've had an interesting perspective. You've been able to see how this camp's unfolded. You've been removed, as we all have at times, but you've kept up to date on everything. What are you most excited about and most interested in seeing now that you've got boots on the ground?
Well, it's really interesting to see how, a lot of things. There's a lot of new pieces on defense. Calais Campbell, starting with the birthday boy, he's, I think, just a huge factor in this defense. And Patrick Queen, first-round draft pick in the middle of that defense. Deshaun Elliott, taking over at safety. There's so much to look at on defense. It's really interesting to see how all those pieces come together. And offensively, of course, you want to see how the offensive line comes together. A lot of decisions to be made there still. Center and right guard. We'll see how that all plays out. I don't know. The decisions have been made there. And, of course, everything on that side of the ball revolves around Lamar. And how's he throwing the ball? And how do his receivers look? Is there an uptick in the passing game? This is a strong team, a good team, one of the best in the NFL. But with any NFL team in training camp, there's a lot to be determined. So I'm very curious to see how things play out here in the run-up to the season opener.
And, John, there's a different energy this week, and you could feel it. And we already saw it yesterday in terms of some of the roster shuffling and early indications of how this front office, this coaching staff is starting to build the 53. As you can see here on your screen, the Ravens are down to 76 players after waiving a few undrafted free agents. Most notably down at the bottom there, 53-man roster deadline Saturday at 4 p.m. And new this year, because of playing football in a pandemic, the practice squad has been extended, or expanded, I should say, to 16 players. So how do you read some of these early moves as we get a sense of how Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, and Ozzie Newsome are starting to really finalize this roster?
Well, it's a cut-down period unlike any that certainly we've ever seen in the NFL, mainly because of that expanded practice squad that you're talking about. Okay, let's do the math here. All right, as you said, 76 players in camp. 53 guys make it. A 16-man practice squad. So 53 and 16, according to my abacus, is 69. So you're only taking 7 guys off the field of the 76 that are here today, in theory. Now, they may go out and get some practice squad guys from elsewhere. So really, the emphasis is not so much on getting rid of guys or who's not going to make it, but who can they retain? Because the practice squad is going to be really important conceivably this year. They really have a chance to retain a lot of these guys here if they can get them through waivers. So that's the real dance this year, I think, at cut-down day, because they can keep most of the guys here.
And, John, I would say this, too, that no more year has it been more important to really train that practice squad to be capable of coming in and playing, because depth is going to be tested. Numbers have been great, and we cross our fingers that continues to be the case in terms of playing throughout COVID here, but you have to have those guys ready. So how that shapes out will be fascinating. This is a show based off engagement, so head to Facebook, the comments section. That's where you can enter your questions, whether it be about Ronnie Stanley or anybody on this roster. Your comments, and we'll get to them over the course of the show. And Twitter's back live in terms of our poll questions this morning. And today's poll question has centered around who's going to lead this team in tackles this season. And, John, the early returns high for Patrick Queen, the rookie out of LSU, has basically been slotted into that starting spot, it would appear. Look, I think the numbers are there. There's evidence to say that he could definitely have a big season in the tackle department. But Chuck Clark, I mean, he led this team in tackles last year. He's not going anywhere.
Chuck, I think his numbers will come up, though. I do agree with the voting there, 62%, pretty big numbers there for Patrick Queen. I mean, here we are in the pro football version of linebacker U, right? I mean, going all the way back to Ray Lewis. That's the way this defense is set up. You got the big guys up front to basically hold up the blockers and open it wide for those linebackers. That's been going on here for a quarter century. And so they've brought in Patrick Queen to take over the middle of that defense, in the middle of that role. So, all reports are good. The coaches certainly, his teammates, very positive about the first-round draft pick. I think he's a plug-and-play guy, ready to go, and I think you're going to see some big tackle numbers there.
John Eisenberg, also plug and play and ready to go in segment one. As you can see, the players just kind of getting the juices flowing here, getting set for practice. We're going to dive into those individual drills as we have every day, but we're going to take a short time out. But before we head to break, Ravens players and staff signed a letter to Senator Mitch McConnell urging him to bring the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2020 to the Senate floor for a vote. Take a look at this powerful video.
Dear Majority Leader McConnell.
Dear Majority Leader McConnell.
The undersigned Baltimore Ravens players and staff write to voice our support for the Justice in Policing Act.
A bill introduced in the wake of the police-involved killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others in the black community who have lost their lives at the hands of law enforcement.
The Justice in Policing Act includes many long overdue reforms that target patterns, practices, and conduct by police that disproportionately affect people of color across the nation.
Far too often, black men, women, and children have lost their lives at the hands of police officers, with little to no accountability for the actions of those officers.
With yet another example of racial discrimination and police misconduct with the shooting of Jacob Blake a few days ago, we can no longer tolerate a system that has too often failed to serve, protect, and value the lives of Black Americans. It is time for our leaders at the highest levels of government to finally act and pass meaningful reforms that will save Black lives.
That is why we write today in support of the Justice in Policing Act. This legislation will change the culture of law enforcement, empower our communities, and build trust between law enforcement and communities of color by addressing systemic racism and bias in law enforcement. Among the much-needed reforms included in the legislation, the Justice in Policing Act would prohibit federal, state, and local law enforcement from racial, religious, and discriminatory profiling.
It will also ban chokeholds and carotid holds at a federal level and require that deadly force only be used as a last resort. Moreover, it would limit the use of military-grade weapons, equipment by state and local law enforcement and promote police accountability by making it easier to prosecute police misconduct in criminal court and by eliminating qualified immunity to civil actions.
As Senate Majority Leader, you alone have the ability to act now on these reform measures that will unify our society while saving Black lives.
We implore you to allow the will of the Senate to work on this real, meaningful change.
By scheduling a floor vote on this legislation.
Sincerely.
Sincerely. Sincerely.
Sincerely.
Sincerely.
Feel like you've watched all the things? Now there's more to love with Xfinity X1, the ultimate entertainment experience. Like live sports, they're back with the best way to watch. And more streaming apps all in one place. More classics, more premieres, plus more to easily find using just your voice. Hello, more. Where have you been all my life?
Get this offer now with DVR service included for a year. Plus, get speed, coverage, and security with the X-Fi Gateway. Click, call, or visit a store today.
If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that we really, really miss football. It's coming. And Ravens scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery are already here. Play now for a chance to win up to $100,000. Or second chance cash and Ravens prizes like seats for 20 years. Please play safely and responsibly.
I can't be covered.
It is caught by Hollywood Brown.
I can't be covered.
Touchdown, Willie Snead.
Except now. Except now.
Except now.
I wear a mask because I care.
I wear a mask because I care about my family. My family, my kids, my parents.
My teammates.
My coaches.
My fellow Marylanders.
Because I care about you.
Because I want us to watch football together again.
Because I want our stadium full again.
Because I want to jump into the stands.
So wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
And stop the spread. Mask on, Maryland.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
Welcome back to Training Camp Live Podcast Season 2. John Eisenberg, what happened to that guy? Congrats on getting a green light on Season 2, John. It was a fun listen. Got to catch up on some faces that maybe we hadn't thought about and names we hadn't thought about in a while. What do you have in store for Season 2?
Oh, Season 2, I definitely sorted through a lot of possibilities. There's over 1,000 former Ravens now walking this planet. Some great stories. I tried to find ones that were unique and that fans would be interested in hearing what they're doing now. Maybe a guy like Kelly Gregg, who I know is a fan favorite.
Absolutely.
And there's so many stories. So I'm in the process of finishing up the episodes now.
Well, let's give the folks a bit of a teaser of what's to come with one of those names, Jason Brown, who has an unbelievable story since leaving football.
I called up John, and he said, "Hey, Jason, what's going on? The draft is coming up in a couple of weeks. What are you going to do? We need to know what's on your mind." And I said, "Coach, I'd love to come play for you. I still got a lot left in the tank, and I'm honored. I thank you for the opportunity. But God is calling me away from football right now." And there was an awkward silence over the phone for about 10 seconds. And then John said, "Well, I appreciate your honesty and, good luck with your, with your career post football." It's like, what was he going to say? You know what I mean? And also, what young kid is going to tell a head NFL coach that, "Yeah, coach, I can't come and play for you because I got to go be a farmer"?
I love that dismount there, John. Jason Brown really personifying what all these players hope to have, which is a passion after football. What more can you tell us about his story?
Yeah, he walked away. He was a free agent in 2012. He had the Ravens and a couple of other teams were interested in signing him. That's him telling the story of him talking to John Harbaugh. He walked away from all of it to become a farmer in North Carolina, to grow sweet potatoes and blueberries. And the kicker of the story is he takes all the food that he grows on a 1,000-acre farm and he gives it away. He gives it to food banks, charities. It's an unbelievable story, and he's one of the real unique former Ravens.
Jason Brown, episode 1 of What Happened to That Guy, season 2. They debut in 2 weeks. So now as we shift our attention, John, back out onto the field and this year's Ravens and this year's offensive line, it's been a hot topic of discussion. You see center there, Matt Skura, who's come off of really what thought to be a devastating knee injury and looks healthy, an incredible testament to his work ethic. But there's questions that remain across this line. A lot of shuffling over the course of camp. That was by design, according to John Harbaugh, to really test the versatility. But as we get closer to week 1, there has to be a sense of, okay, who are we going into that Browns game with?
Yeah, no questions about the tackles. You got Ronnie Stanley on the left side, Orlando Brown Jr. on the right side. They both went to the Pro Bowl last year. It's one of the best duos in the league. So the questions, you work from the outsides in. That's where you start to have questions. I don't think there's any question at left guard either with Bradley Bozeman. Started all 16 games last year. He's back there this year. So the real question is center. Will it be Patrick McCarry or Matt Skura? I don't think that's been determined. And then the real question mark, of course, replacing Marshall Yanda. There's just been numerous candidates there. And it's hard to know exactly how that's going to play out right now. The option, you've got a veteran DJ Fluker, you've got a rookie Tyree Phillips, you've got some other rookies. I mean, there's just a lot of options there, and I think they're still sorting through them, but the decision, I think, will be made within the week.
Yeah, that was the goal. John had mentioned that by this week, and then obviously in the game prep week next week, that was the goal. Tyree Phillips, middle of your screen there, 74 in the purple jersey. The rookie out of Mississippi State has turned some heads with his play over his time in camp. But we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to really dive into these individual drills, talk some running backs. Mark Ingram, he's the leader of that group. And again, head to Facebook, throw your comments, your questions into that comment section, and we'll address them after the break.
Wawa hoagies are a winning pick for game day. Every hoagie's made with the ingredients you crave in varieties you love. From toasty cheesesteak to mouthwatering meatball, Italian, and more, there's a hoagie for every mood and every appetite. Stop in, order ahead with the Wawa mobile app, or get it delivered. When you're planning for the game, we have you covered with Wawa Catering. Make your game day a winner with Wawa hoagies, snacks, and drinks. Wawa is the official hoagie of the Baltimore Ravens. Gotta have a Wawa.
You can see it in the eyes of every Ravens fan. An unwavering commitment to the team they love. A pride so vibrant, it can be seen from miles away. A community that's fully committed to their team and shows up week after week to help chase a championship. To the Ravens flock, to Chet starters, to those who bleed purple, M&T Bank wants to say, we're your biggest fan.
We all make our voices heard on game day.
1, 2, 3, we got. But on election day, only 60% of eligible Americans even showed up to vote.
Only 60%?
60%? 60% isn't good enough.
We each have a responsibility, an opportunity to be heard.
To choose our representation.
And it's easy.
Visit risetovote.org
and register to vote.
And register to vote.
Let's all be heard this election day.
MTSU Bank is the official bank of the Ravens flock. As your team's official bank, you know M&T is the only place you can get your hands on the exclusive Ravens debit card, which gets you special discounts at the Ravens team store. Back out on the practice field here, Mark Ingram waiting for that horn to go off, catching up with some of his mates in the secondary, Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. Individual drills momentarily picking up, and Mark Ingram, John, has really cemented himself as not just a leader of this offense, but really one of the voices of this team. And a look back at his 2019 season, it's the Frank's Red Hot player profile. As you look at Mark with this now somewhat crowded running back group, what are your expectations heading into this season?
They're high. I mean, I don't know, his carries, I think, will probably be similar. I think they do. It is a crowded room, a lot of talent at that position. You have to love, though, how Mark Ingram has responded to, there's a lot of talent behind him on that depth chart. But how did he respond? By coming in the best shape of his life, determined to lead that group and pick up right where he left off last year. So that's a true veteran leader right there that looks like he has plenty of gas in the tank. So I expect a big year from him.
And the luxury of that depth is they can really manage the workload on Mark Ingram. Obviously, that was an unfortunate storyline at the tail end of last season. He dealt with that calf injury. But now with Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Justice Hill, I mean, it's everybody hitting the field fresh when they go in there. And J.K. Dobbins, because he's the new face to that group, John, has really impressed a lot of people who've been out here watching practice. In your experience covering this league, covering this team, what's required of a young back to be effective in year one?
Well, first of all, don't drop the ball.
They're about to work on that right now. I see Matt Weiss ready to try and knock those loose.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I mean, I know fans look at how many yards they gained and everything, and the thing that coaches are looking at is, can you block and pass protection? If you're going to be on the field, don't drop the ball and pick up blitzes. Justice Hill, for instance, is really good at that. He's one of the best at that. So, Dobbins, I would think that's probably an area where they're working with him hard on pass protection because he has shown that he is an NFL caliber playmaker, and it's going to be very hard to keep him off the field. So it's really, really getting more interesting as this camp goes on that J.K. Dobbins is such a playmaker. I mean, the Ravens hope for that. They're getting it, and maybe even more than they expected right off the bat. So really interesting to me how all this is going to work out because they really need two balls to keep all these guys happy. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, and a name we can't forget is Gus Edwards. Last year, he rushes for a little over 700 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. And Gus Edwards, all he's done every time he hits the turf is be effective. And we know his style is downhill in between the tackles, that physical bruising back because of his size. He's shown a little bit being out here at camp, John, of an improvement out of the backfield as a pass catcher. But what scenarios do we think that Gus will find himself with the opportunity, I should say, to continue the positive momentum he's built over the first 2 years here?
Well, for Gus, obviously, and for all these guys, I think the coaches are waiting to see when the ball's in your hand, what do you do with it? I mean, and if Gus continues to do the only thing he's ever done, 5.3 yards a carry last year is phenomenal. If he continues to gain like that, he'll be out there. They will find a way. Those 700 yards you referenced, that was as a number 2 running back.
Yeah.
So he's a backup. Getting 700 yards. Gus has done nothing but produce. I'm a Gus Edwards fan, just unabashed. I mean, he's done nothing but produce, and he's had constant challenges. They bring in Ingram. They draft Dobbins. There's always something put in his way, but yet he continues to find a role and produce. So you have to believe that will continue to happen. He's just a determined young man and an impressive guy, and he'll probably find a way to get on that field.
I think so. Short yardage, so important, especially with this team. They don't play a lot of long yardage downs due to what they can do in first and second down. So Gus could be valuable there. Here we go, our first Facebook question from Brett. How many yards do you think J.K. Dobbins is going to have here in his rookie season, John? And this is going to be a tough game for any of these guys for all the reasons we just described. So I'm going to throw the over-under at you at 500 rushing yards for J.K. Dobbins. Would you go over or under?
I think I'll go under, not by much. That is when I saw the question, I said that is the number that came to mind for me, 500. Really tip of the iceberg, I think, for J.K. and his Ravens career. But you have to start somewhere. There's an awful lot of talent with him, and so he'll get chances. But he's not going to be the number 1 load-carrying back. So Ingram has fiercely retained that. So, but he'll be out there. He's just too good not to be. So, and think about the 500 yards. He's also going to catch the ball out of the backfield.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, I think if it's almost total yards, I'd got him north of 500.
Yeah, total yards definitely north of 500 because they're going to throw to him out of the backfield. He makes people miss. It's a weapon, and his talent is a weapon. And so weapons are on the field in the NFL. He will be out there somehow.
Can't wait to see how this running back group really irons themselves out. Fun to look at some of these drills that Matt Weiss has dialed up for them. Let's shift, John, to the other side of the kind of the offensive storyline here in the wide receivers. And Marquise Hollywood Brown, even though you've been watching and reading and keeping up with this team remotely, it's impossible to not hear about all the things that Marquise has done this offseason. But more importantly, in my opinion, once they hit the grass, were wearing pads and have been out here in full speed, he's made a ton of plays. James Prochet, John, has been out on this field, first guy out every morning, off the jugs, getting his work in. He's obviously going to be key in special teams, but could be a factor in that wide receiving depth chart as well. So big picture view of the wide receivers, what's top of line for you?
The goal, obviously, I think, is to be for the receivers to be more of a factor than they were last year. I mean, it was the running backs, then the tight ends, then the wide receivers last year. And Lamar Jackson is the first one to say, I don't want that to always be the case. I don't want to have to do everything with my legs. I want to throw the ball. That's the next step for this offense. Certainly, you've talked about it on this show. And that's become more to ramp up that passing game, the deep passing game, the long passing game. And so the pieces, it would seem, are there. With Hollywood just looking like almost a different player than last year, and he was pretty good last year. And then Miles Boykin, I think, a really key piece, the big-bodied guy that they want to see develop on the outside, and both rookies. I mean, they've had some receivers here, some Prochet taken in the 6th round. They've had some receivers taken in the lower rounds that have not always panned out. He looks like a piece, and certainly Devin Duvernay, and I haven't even mentioned Willie Snead. So there's a lot of pieces there, and it just seems like it's ready to take off. This receiving core, they're determined to be young and grow, and I can't wait to see how all that plays out.
And I would agree, John, and the one thing I'd add is that it seems that they've taken to heart not just the commitment to being more a part of this offense in terms of some of the statistical breakdowns, but almost maybe those that don't really look to them, whether it's the first, second, or even third line of description when it comes to this offense. It's Lamar, it's the running backs, it's the tight ends. Willie Snead, who's the vet and has had an unbelievable camp, I think they look at it like, hey, we're here to prove that we can make a big impact. So that'll be fun to see, and a great way to go to break with a Miles Boykin diving catch in the end zone. Pass rushers coming up next here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity.
Feel like you've watched all the things? Now there's more to love with Xfinity X1, the ultimate entertainment experience. Like live sports, they're back with the best way to watch, and more streaming apps all in one place. More classics, more premieres, plus more to easily find using just your voice. Hello, more. Where have you been all my life?
Get this offer now with DVR service included for a year. Plus, get speed, coverage, and security with the XFi Gateway. Click, call, or visit a store today.
If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that we really, really miss football.
It's coming, and Ravens scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery are already here. Play now for a chance to win up to $100,000. Or second chance cash and Ravens prizes like seats for 20 years. Please play safely and responsibly.
Pumpkin is back at Dunkin'. DD Perks members start running again with $2 medium iced coffees. Join on the Dunkin' app today. Baltimore runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply. Back here on Training Camp Live, talking pass rushers, hitting the defensive side of the ball with John Eisenberg, and heading back out to Facebook. Brandon wants to know, how has Judon and Jalen Ferguson looked on the edges? I'm predicting 10 sacks and an 8-sack season out of those guys this year. Well, John, that's an interesting discussion because Judon, franchise tag, great year last year, sack total, you think maybe that goes up a tick, but to put Jalen Ferguson in there, I think maybe getting ahead of ourselves because there's a lot of competition for that other edge rusher. We've spent some time talking about Tyus Bowser, the strong camp he's had. I mean, there's a number of players competing for that spot, including Jalen Ferguson.
Oh, absolutely. Pernell McPhee, don't forget him. Pernell had 3 sacks in 6 games last year before he got injured in limited time. I think they would try to use him correctly. That's a guy that can put up some sacks. Jihad Ward, don't forget about him. The coaches love him. Lots of energy. So, yeah, you have to earn your snaps out there. And Jalen, I know, missed a little bit of time with an injury in training camp. So we'll see how that plays out. Certainly Tyus Bowser has done nothing to lose any of his playing time. He might be the guy out there to begin with.
And Tyus Bowser was in that position last year, the back half, making an impact now in a contract here. Judon, though, you think is the man to lead that group. A happy birthday to Calais Campbell. We hit it off the top of the show. You see him in the middle of your screen, the largest man amongst large men, 34 years old. And John, how have you viewed what Calais has brought, whether it be from a leadership point, energy, and then obviously on the field as you've gotten to know this year's team?
Well, I've actually written this in one of the columns that appears on the website and the app. What a steal. Just one of the steals of the year, I think, in the NFL. Obviously, they got him from Jacksonville. for a 5th-round draft pick, and the Jaguars are starting over a little bit, and so there's a little bit of a salary dump going on there. But just a great player with so much, and he turns 34. It's interesting because he's made the Pro Bowl every year in his 30s. He is getting better as he goes along. And just a veteran leader on this team, a formidable physical presence, a run stopper. He brings everything that this team wants and wanted, and where they wanted to get better. And I could not be more impressed with a new Raven arrival than I could with him. He really stands out to me as one of the best fits they've brought in here, maybe in a few years.
And getting back to that sack total discussion, and we've made this point, because of the addition of Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, 95 in white right there, and along with Brandon Williams and what he does, the attention on the interior of that pass rush and that defensive line will help guys like Matthew Judon, Tyus Bowser, Jihad Ward, Pernell McPhee, Jalen Ferguson, whoever that opposite rusher is, to get after the quarterback a bit more, because that sack total was possibly one number that could be viewed as something that you want to improve upon after the 2019 season, where they only sacked the quarterback 37 times. And we had Wink at the podium yesterday, and he discussed just the versatility across this defense, and specific to the defensive backfield, but how that lends to this group up front, getting after the passer, just the dimension and what they can do with this scheme defensively.
Yeah, I think the nature of the pass rush is going to change a little bit this year for the reasons that you mentioned. Those 37 sacks, if I believe, once again, I'm doing some math here, Evan, but I think there were 16 guys contributed to that. 37 total.
I hope this isn't a trend for the remainder of the week, because my brain might explode if we start doing math each segment, Sean.
Sorry, apologize for the math. But 16 guys contributing. So it came from a lot of places, a lot of smaller numbers. Judon was the only Raven with more than 5 sacks last year, despite, with 37 for the team overall. So I expect it to change when you've got a lot more attention on the inside guys. Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, all those guys you mentioned. I think that definitely will open things up. I think for Judon, I definitely expect him to get 10 or more. And some of these other guys, and of course Wink's blitzes, which come from all sorts of places, that will continue. They may not rely on it quite as much this year, I think, because you might have some of these linebackers winning their one-on-one battles because they're seeing less blocking, because the offenses have to contend with those tough guys in the up front.
Well, as we get to the closing minutes here of Training Camp Live, let's take a look and have a little Lamar discussion, John, because we can never talk too much Lamar and what he's brought here in his 3rd season. Just a calmness, a command of this offense, a confidence, which has never been an issue, but something that seems to exude him. And that's how I've viewed it, just watching these early portions of practice, seeing him out on the field, his comfort level with everything around him, his personality, never going to not be part of the discussion. As you look at Lamar ahead of this season, what are things that have you most excited?
Well, he's unchanged. I think that's great news. I think that's what you really want. He's coming off a season that turned him from a guy that you hoped would be a good NFL quarterback to one of the faces of the league, and just a huge season for him. Unanimous MVP selection. You can't have a better season, from an individual perspective. So you always wonder, will guys, he's so young, will guys start to change? He appears no different at all. He's all about winning. He is all about what he hasn't done, even though he's already done a lot. If you're a coach, you just love that. Lamar Jackson does not appear to be changed at all, phased at all by his success of last season. He's still as hungry as they come. So that's just a huge thing for this team. He already impacts the team with his personality and sort of infectious drive. But to still be, not impacted by what he did last year, I think is just a great thing for this team.
Dialed in and ready for week 1, as is John Eisenberg. One show in the books, John. This was fun. We're off tomorrow, but we'll be back Thursday and Friday to wrap up training camp here at the Castle. Stay tuned, though. Post-practice, the press conferences. John Harbaugh, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Duvernay, and Gus Edwards. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.